Now, the last time I did a video about air dribbling was January 27th, 2020, and at that time, my air dribbles, well, they weren't that good. I understood how to do them, but what followed was an entire year of me working on my aerial-based mechanics, and now I am happy to announce that I know a whole lot more about it and can give you my in-depth guide to air dribbling. And yes, this does cover air rolling as well. First, we're going to start with the GroundtoEdge dribble and then move towards the WalltoEdge dribble because it has a few extra steps. So, jumping straight in, we start off with the GroundtoEdge dribble. Now, already there are two types. There's moving to an air dribble when the ball is moving or bouncing towards you, and then there's going directly from a ground dribble. The easiest of the two is when the ball is moving towards you. All you need to do here to start the air dribble is to line your car up, drive into the ball, and pop it up. Simple. Next, you will want to get to the ball as quickly as you can. So you're going to want a fast aerial so that you're still making contact with the ball as it's climbing or as it has peaked. Trying to start an air dribble as the ball is on its way down is incredibly hard and won't really work. The faster you make your way into the air, the faster you can make that connection with the ball, and the easier it's going to be to start the initial air dribble. Next up is the first connection with the ball in the control phase of the air dribble. In order to give yourself the most control, you'll want to hit the ball at a 45-degree angle, or the underside center of the ball. And even though you see people constantly air rolling through this movement, you really don't need to. You only need to get into the habit of air rolling from the very start if your first contact isn't going to be a solid touch in the center of the underside of the ball. And while people think it looks cooler and you'll see multiple people air rolling the entire time, the goal is to make as little adjustment as you can, unless you need to change direction suddenly. The less movement, the less chance for error. You want to make smaller movements and more slight touches rather than being all over the place trying to go from side to side. Now, if you do need to adjust, try to make sure that the nose of the car is contacting the underside of the ball throughout the movement. It should keep control of it and stop the ball from being sent too far out in front of you or to the sides. The further up the ball your car is touching, the faster the ball will move away from you. Always try to find a way to work to that sweet spot underneath the ball and work towards keeping the nose of your car in contact with it while feathering the boost. Now, if the ball is bouncing towards you and not rolling towards you, it's pretty much the same. You're looking for that initial pop. You can either do this by timing the bounce just right and hitting it as it comes up, or you can wait for it to have already bounced and treat that bounce as your pop-up, which means you would just move straight into the control phase of the air dribble. This would mean skipping the initial touch and moving up into a double jump fast aerial to make that quick contact with the ball while it's in the air. Next is the harder of the two GroundtoEdge dribble variants, which is when the ball is on your car like a normal dribble and you pop it up. Now, to start, you simply just want to be dribbling the ball towards your opponent's net. The more direct you are with your lineup, the easier the rest of this is going to be. Next, you want to try to have the ball in the middle of the car, if not ever so slightly towards the front. This is because you're going to double jump to pop the ball up. And the most important thing you want from this is height. So keeping the ball in the middle of your car while being very slightly towards the front means that the ball will not get sent out in any direction too heavily and will give you time to get underneath it after that initial pop. Now, you should realize that you are in pretty much the same position as the last air dribble we spoke about. Everything else from there is the exact same. Your car should be in the air after the double jump, and so you should be looking to make that first contact with the underside of the center of the ball. As to not repeat myself again, I don't want to go over anything that I just said, but I will bring in another factor that is very important. Speed. You go too fast here and the ball gets shot out in front of you. You go too slow and you get no momentum behind you when you start your air dribble. You want to be moving at a decent pace. This will help you transition your double jump into more of a forwards and up motion rather than just a double jump, which is overall going to help you reach the ball quickly and already be traveling towards the opponent's net. That's about all that can be said for the GroundtoEdge dribble, and so now we're going to move on to the more popular variant of air dribbling, which is moving from the wall. When moving from the wall, the setup is by far the most important aspect. Getting straight into it, when moving to set up for an air dribble, you'll want to make sure you're traveling the same speed as the ball as it's about to make its way up the wall. This is going to allow you to stay close enough to the ball that you don't have to catch up to it too much in the air. When approaching the wall, you want to angle your approach slightly so that you are facing towards the goal. I don't mean be facing all the way down the field, but don't be straight on with the wall either. If you're around the halfway line, you can have it at a slight angle because you don't have very far to travel towards the goal. And if you're further away, you'll want to angle yourself a little bit more. The further from the goal, the more angled you want to make your approach. This is because a more angled approach will send the ball further into the center of the field. So a closer setup means you want more upwards momentum, which gives you more time to control the ball. So, after pushing the ball up to the wall, you'll want to be making that crucial touch to put the ball into the air just above the horizontal banner that runs along the base of the wall. When making that touch, you want to be getting a solid contact with the nose of your car. You can make contact with the corners, but this might make the touch less predictable, and so the nose is always the best choice here. Now, just after making contact with the ball, you should have sent it into the air. Now, ideally, you'll want this ball to be placed decently high, but not hitting the ceiling. And this comes down to trial and error, but just after you've hit the ball, you'll want to jump and follow it. The reason you want to jump right away is because the momentum allows you to follow up behind it and get very close to already making that first touch on the ball as it's rising. Which, like I said earlier, it is much easier to work with a rising ball than a falling ball. Now, there are a few ways to come off the wall. Some people like to jump and not air roll at all during the whole thing, but I think this way should be avoided as it leaves you with very little control if you have to make sudden adjustments. The two ways I recommend are, number one, just after you jump, you can manually air roll your car so that the nose of your car is once again facing the ball. Obviously, the way you roll your car would change depending on which wall you go off, but either way, it should just be a very simple flick of the analog stick to line yourself up. And number two, the way that I and many other people do it, you tornado spin off the wall, moving towards that first touch. I always tornado spin using air roll left no matter what wall I go off, and while I might not always get a first touch in the air with the nose of my car, I'm getting it with the front corners, which allows me to stay in control of the ball. Another thing to keep in mind is during this initial first touch, is that if you are moving too fast when you're about to make that first touch, do not boost on contact. When you make contact, if you're not boosting, the ball tends to stay much closer to your car and allows you to have that nice soft touch that just sits the ball nicely on top of the car and lets you carry it. I try to make sure, no matter what speed I'm going, that as soon as I'm about to make that contact, I cut the boost for a split second, allowing the car to be placed under the ball and then boost to start the carry. And from here on out, it completely depends on your aerial capabilities. You want to stay under in that sweet spot we talked about for as long as you can. You don't have to air roll at all, but you will see me doing it a lot because I find it helps me keep control. Start off with the basics of no air rolling and just trying to get the ball closer and closer to the goal. Then, when you're comfortable, mix in a few spins where you can. And when you get really good, you can try to get closer control of the ball while air rolling and having the ball contact different parts of the car. However, you will notice that even though it looks like my car is all over the place, I'm constantly trying to have the ball in contact with the front section of my car. And I'm using the spinning to keep my car centered with the ball, all while giving me the option to move it to either side if I wanted to. When learning air rolling, allow yourself to take it slow and build up to this level. You don't need to rush it as it is something that takes a long time, but remember that it's not just spinning for looks, but rather to keep the nose of the car in contact while also allowing myself control of the flight path of the ball. If you remember that while going through your air dribbling training, you will start to understand the movement a lot faster and have a much easier time picking it up. So that is today's video on air dribbling. If you would like to see how I learned from the very start, then check out my 100 hours of air dribbling video that shows you the progress over the 100 hours that I trained and breaks down each step so you can follow along. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I thought I could break it down for you a little better now that I understand more of the mechanic, and honestly, I could probably do the same for a bunch of my other older videos like flip resets and everything. So, might be something to look into in the future. Anyway, thank you for watching. Feel free to sub if you're new, or if you watch the videos every week and you just never realized that you weren't subbed, because according to statistics, that's about 70% of you guys. But anyway, thank you for watching, much love, and I'll see you next time.